Good evening, America. This is my plea and my prayer to this nation. We started Continue Mission nearly 10 years ago, and the goal of Continue Mission was to not just continue our mission as veterans, as patriots, as those that love America, but it was to bring the civil dialogue and the unity that has made America great for nearly 250 years. America started as a dream of freedom. And from the first shots fired at the Battle of Concord and on Lexington Greens and the Battle of Bunker Hill, that freedom has been tested. It was tested when the British invaded us again in the War of 1812 to try to destroy our fragile existence, our United States of America, the dream that became a constitutional republic and has not changed in 250 years. Our country was tested once again, ripped apart in a great civil war, started because of a group that no longer wanted to be the United States of America. Instead, they wanted to be a loose confederation of states who clung to state rights and who saw those state rights as giving them the ability to enslave men to do their work. Over 400,000 Americans lost their life securing the freedom that we enjoy today. That freedom was tested again in the Battle of San Juan Hill when Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders rode up and chased an oppressor from Spain to give a country an opportunity for freedom. Once again tested in France, in the fields, Flanders fields, where many lay. Thousands of young men gave their last full ounce of life for our freedom. It was tested again when we were brutally attacked on December 7th, 1941, a day that shall live in infamy. Maybe some people have forgotten that. I have not. They continued this fight through the Pacific, through the early bloody days in the Battle of Guadalcanal, when the backs of America was against the wall. Young men came from every city, every village in America, and they came together in a united effort. And they rallied behind our flag, regardless of how they believed and regardless of what political side they were on. They knew who the enemy truly was. And the enemy is anyone that is against freedom. They continued that fight in the battle to stop communism and its spread into South Korea. Today, we have a South Korea. That battle and that war against communism and its spread continued through the fields of Vietnam. They fought in rice paddies, in the Central Highlands, and in the mountains, and at a place called Khe Sanh, where over 58,000 Americans laid down their lives in the name of American freedom. No matter what you think of that war, communism was stopped. It was not allowed to spread beyond the borders of Vietnam. And eventually, that war in Vietnam, whether you like it or not, led to the ultimate fall of the Soviet Union and its bloc countries in late 1989. We were tested once again and asked to come and help an oppressed nation of Kuwait because they were brutally raped and assaulted by Saddam Hussein and his malicious army. We fought a 3-day lightning war that began with a 30-day air campaign unlike anything you'd ever seen. As a young man watching this from the front lines, I knew then that our country was the strongest country in the world. And the way that we maintain peace is through strength and common sense. We laid low and we allowed the enemy in our country. And on 9/11, they showed us exactly what they think about your freedom. When radical Islamic terrorists with Al-Qaeda flew aircraft into the Twin Towers and into the Pentagon, and where a brave and courageous group of Americans came together and brought that plane down in a field in Pennsylvania, saving countless lives while sacrificing theirs. As a man looking at this, I knew where my place was. We went to Iraq and we went to Afghanistan, not because of whatever fictitious beliefs that you think that they were, but it was solely to take on the enemy on their ground and not have to fight them in the streets of America. I fought through the streets of Baghdad and Fallujah, and I can tell you, it was no picnic. And you don't want anything like that coming to the streets of America. Here we are 25 years later. Have we forgot? I think we have. You know, John F. Kennedy said it himself. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Our country is a constitutional republic. We are not a pure democracy. That is a lie that continues to be told time and time again by people that do not understand the history of this great nation. We have had days recently where some of the greatest men that I ever learned about in my life, men like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, their very integrity was questioned. They were called bigots and racist and would be called a fascist today because of their beliefs, because of the way that they felt, and because of their inability, as some would say, to be accepting to all things. We are accepting to people. We have a way that you enter this nation in a legal and proper way. And you come here and you learn our language and you assimilate to the American ways. Sharia law has no place in the United States of America. Marxism, socialism, communism, none of those things have a seat at the table with freedom-loving American citizens. I say this as a citizen of this great country who has fought in 2 wars and bled for this nation and watched good young men die. They gave all of their tomorrows for our today. I will not sit silent and allow that sacrifice to be made in vain. So as we look today, we have lost the ability to have civil conversation. It has grown worse now than I've ever seen. Our soldiers were on the streets of the nation's capital. Whether you believe in it or not, many of those troops were spit upon and called fascists and murderers and killers, much like the veterans of Vietnam, who returned to an ungrateful nation. And because of that, they formed their own organization and they pulled together for the greater good of all veterans and all of America. Do not think for 1 minute that that generation is not patriotic. It sickens them to see people burn the flag, but they know that it is allowed as an exercise of their freedoms as long as they haven't stolen it. I personally think it's a disgrace and a dishonor to this great nation and to every young American that laid still in a coffin with one of those flags draped across it. You dishonor them. You're not making a political statement. You're making a statement against the very foundation of our nation. God has blessed America. We are a nation of the people, by the people, and for the people. And the people assembled and came together. And they elect their leaders. And just because you lose and your candidate does not win, does not give you the right to riot and to burn and to destroy or to point the finger. But what about this? What about that time? What about this time? We need to stop doing that. America, my plea to you today and my prayer to God Almighty is for us to pull it together before we fall apart. Because the wolves have once again moved into our nation, much like they did in the days leading up to 9/11. And they've masked themselves in these groups known as Antifa, calling themselves, we're anti-fascists like the Americans. Remember, the Marxists were Antifa too. The Marxists, Russians, the Soviet Union, their claim to fame was to be anti-fascist. This group shares that same ideology. What you see today is more akin to the Bolshevik revolution of 1917 than any kind of revival of American patriotism or spirit. Anyone that has to use violence and hatred to get their message across, they're spreading the wrong message. Our entire world was rocked when we saw the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And I've heard people speak so ill of this man, and they accuse him of everything, being a racist, being a bigot. They said the same thing about Abraham Lincoln, and the same kind of people and the same kind of person assassinated him too, while he sat in that booth in Ford Theater. Because Abraham Lincoln, he was going to free the slaves. The war was over. But they couldn't take it. And what they did is they put a bullet in the head of Abraham Lincoln, and they put a bullet through Charlie Kirk, and they thought they would silence our freedom and our voice. But they only amplified it. You have woken a sleeping giant. The American people will not stand for this, and the veterans of this country, we cannot stand for this. We took an oath. And if you can't see that crime has infested not only our nation's capital, but the cities all across America, and our police forces are overwhelmed, then you're not looking. Because I have personally been to nearly all of these cities. And I can tell you, we have a big problem. We have a problem when American citizens are afraid to walk out of their house. Not just at night, but at any time. And that has been what's going on. And you see a movement that masquerades itself as we're just here to help all people. I want you to study in your history books about the Bolshevik Revolution. And I want you to look at the freedom that they proposed to bring to the people. Free housing, low-cost medical care, a job for everyone, food at an affordable price, no more kings, no more royal families. And they took the Tsar and his entire family and they murdered them in cold blood. And we have people today that not only cheek to tongue talk about it, but they openly call for it. And we cannot allow that. You could have never worn the cloth of this nation and burn that flag and go against everything that we took an oath to defend. For when you do that, you have taken a side against freedom and against the American way. And I would ask you, why have we allowed that to happen? I'm James McCormick. This is Continue Mission. We are back, baby. We're going to be back, and we're going to be taking this to the next level, because America now gets to see us on Roku TV and the Veteran Channel. They get to hear us on Facebook, StreamYard, and probably 18 other platforms that are out there. And we need to come together as a nation. I don't think it's too late, but there is a very radical movement in this country. And unless we come together now, we're going to lose it. I wrote a piece, and I would like to hopefully read it to you. And when I put this piece on Facebook, I had a couple of people come on cussing me out, calling me a fascist. Well, let me read this to you. Introduction. When did American patriotism become fascism? In recent years, we've watched an alarming transformation in how patriotism is now portrayed in America. Qualities that were once defined as a good citizen, respect for the Constitution, national defense, the family, our flag, our faith, are now by some branded as fascist and racist. The very act of flying this flag has brought upon hatred and disgusting commentary from people that you would expect from radical Islamic terrorists or radical people that just hate this country. But these are from our fellow American citizens who feel offended by this flag. At the same time, a radical fringe on the left has openly advanced a socialist ideology while embracing violent extremism that runs counter to Christianity, our Constitution, and even the natural laws in which our republic was founded. Folks, we're not talking about anything other than our Constitution. You can live any way you want. You can worship any way you please. But we have basic fundamental rules of citizenry here that if you can't abide by that, then you must go. We have no room for you at the end. Because I will tell you, America will not stand. We are a house divided. The Bible tells us this. Our enemies know this. They know our Christian faith. And so they think we'll propose that you're a house divided. And that you somehow are going to be able to not be able to come together as a nation of the people, by the people, right? So instead of coming together, they push this radical ideology that says, no, we can't love this flag. We can't support this flag that I love so much that I'm going to make sure that it's up there right. But instead they burn it. And for what reason? Because they hate America. They embrace violent extremism that runs counter to our culture. We are a nation of laws. And if you notice them all, they're all pointing their fingers. And it reminds me of Castro and Lenin. When they were talking, they always pointed their finger like this. In this report, I want to talk about how this shift has occurred and why it is dangerous and why Americans, what we got to do to preserve the nation our founders entrusted to us. Patriotism versus fascism. That is a false narrative. Just because you love America, just because you voted for Donald Trump, does not make you a fascist. Just because you're upholding laws that have been on the books forever does not mean that you're a fascist. Those who fought and defeated Nazism were patriotic Americans, men primarily, and women from all classes, races, and regions who prayed openly. They carried Bibles in their backpacks and respected our flag and our Constitution. The fictional portrayal that such Americans would have supported the radical agenda of today is historically false, and it's insulting. And it needs to stop because it's a lie. Yet many activists and their allies in the media now label veterans, Christians, and law-abiding citizens as fascist. Perhaps someone will see this and they will brand me as a fascist. I'm not a fascist. I'm an American. I'm a Purple Heart recipient. I fought for my country. I love America. I'm willing to listen to you. Whatever you need to say. But I'm not willing to bend a knee at the playing of our national anthem. I'm not willing to sit back and idly watch as our flag is desecrated and as heroes of this nation are labeled as fascist. Those are the same things that were mentioned in the Bolshevik Revolution. They're fascists, they said. The Tsar and his family. These fascists, they're forcing you to live in poverty, they said. It's the same message today. But because our education system has been dumbed down, and you're not allowed to truly study American history and world history, you're allowed to go on, and if you see it on Facebook or on TikTok, it must be the truth. But dig deep into that Bolshevik Revolution and see what you see. The American Republic was founded as a representative government, a republic, not a direct democracy, manipulated by mobs or ideology. You see, that's whenever you could go into a place and the mob would rule. Thank God we have an American Republic, a representative government. But we vote for representatives, not for party-controlled mobs to change the rules midstream. Today's radical movements on all sides are bad. You can't silence the opinion of the left, and you can't silence the opinion of the right. But what you can do is you can come together, and you can do like we've done for nearly 250 years, folks. We had civil debate. People actually came together. They worked things out. This movement today is different. This movement today is in your face 24/7, all the time. Media outlets, people that stand up and say, you know, they're a veteran or a this or a that. I'll be happy to show you my DD 214 anytime and compare it to any radical that's standing up there and saying that they believe in socialist Marxist agendas, or they're calling our police force and the people that serve our nation fascist. Let's compare our DD-214s, our discharges. Let's see who got the honorable discharge here. And let's see who didn't. The people that are calling for the death of fascists, who bear the responsibility for what happened to not only Charlie Kirk, but to dozens of Americans because of violent rhetoric. They burned down towns, assaulted police, destroyed businesses, and disrespected our national symbols. Their conduct mirrors not the greatest generation of World War II, but the violent uprisings of Red October or the extremist tactics of radical Islamic ideology, undermining faith, family, and freedom. This is not progressivism. It's revolutionary chaos. And look, they try to make you feel bad. But what about these poor people? Of course we have feelings for the poor people. But the same people that were screaming about the Palestinian plight now say nothing when the Palestinians are being murdered by Hamas whole scale, except for one man. And that's your president of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump, who is our president, who said, if you don't stop killing the Palestinian people, we will come and kill you, Hamas. Not the Palestinian children who are being murdered. Where are the flags? Where are the protests? Where are the calls for peace? You say nothing. You cheered October 7th when Israelis were brutally raped and murdered and held hostage for over 2 years. You cheered that on as revolutionary. But the poor Gazan people, the poor Palestinians, they're starving. Well, they're dying now. And you say nothing because you are a hypocrite who only intention that you have is to push forth a radical Marxist agenda that's designed to destroy patriotism and faith. You have vilified Christianity, traditional morality, and derided us as being oppressive because we say the name of Jesus Christ, because we hope that you find him and you ask for his forgiveness and you save your soul. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, and whomsoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. We don't want people to go to hell. We don't want people to live in this violent time. It is good to love your country and to be patriotic and to fly your flag. After 9/11, there wasn't a house on our street that didn't have a flag. They ran out of American flags because people wanted to fly one because we were a united people, but it took that kind of an attack. But we still had a fringe group. We still had a fringe that were there needling, demonizing America. You want to know why we went and we fought in Iraq and Afghanistan? It had nothing to do with weapons of mass destruction. It had everything to do with taking the enemy, pulling him out of his dens in his country, in his yard, so that we could fight and destroy them there. Just like in Vietnam. We're going to stop communism, and they stopped it. Vietnam is Vietnam. But it didn't go the way that they thought it would go. And eventually, because of the tenacity of these wonderful veterans that fought in the Vietnam War, communism fell. And it fell hard when the wall came down. How dare anyone want to bring back that ideology that built a wall between Germany, that separated families? That's what communism, socialism, and Marxism does. You're either all in or you're all out. The Trump era and the attack on the American culture, the presidency of Donald J. Trump, exposed the intensity of this ideological war. Every policy, every effort to strengthen national security, enforce the law, or defend American workers has been viciously attacked. This is not about Trump as a man. It is about their determination to dismantle American culture and values. And we, as Americans, must wake up. This radical attempt to overthrow our established republic is real. And let me tell you, it's not Democrat against Republican. I know a lot of Democrats out there, John Fetterman being one, who absolutely does not subscribe to this. But he subscribes to the same ideology of John F. Kennedy, who said what? Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And JFK was right. And he was murdered brutally. Brought this country to its knees. Republicans, Democrats. There was only Americans at that time. No one cheered his death except for radical, communist, Russian, and Cubans. That's the truth. Go study your history book. Go see who was celebrating the death of John F. Kennedy. It wasn't the Republicans, who didn't vote for him, by the way, but they darn sure didn't want him killed. Take all the conspiracy theory out of this, folks. He was murdered because he subscribed to his faith in this country, and he was a veteran, a decorated veteran who fought in World War II. Watch about PT 109. The man loved his country. A nation, one nation under God, a nation where freedom is secured by the Constitution, by strong families, by faith, and by the courage of patriots who will not be silenced. This is not just about politics. It's about our survival, folks. The survival of the republic our forefathers built and our World War II heroes defended. They would never walk in the streets with you, Antifa. As a matter of fact, most of them subscribed to the George Patton belief that we should have crushed you and pushed you back into Russia, because that was the Antifa that you are most associated with. Then the true American patriots, they never called themselves anti-fascist. They called themselves Americans. They wore American flags with pride. They didn't burn them. So you see, when did American patriotism become fascism? I don't know. But I'm here with Continue Mission in our restructuring, rebranding, to come back and say, let's pull this country back together. Because if we don't, we are going to fall apart. I think that we have an obligation to have a conversation before we start slinging lead at each other, like we did from 1861 to 1865. Most of you idiots that are out there calling for a civil war have never been shot at. Or if you have, you're a lunatic. To want that to happen on the streets of America is absolute idiocy. To defend the violent criminal conduct that we see going on in our cities in America is lunacy. In the name of what? To appease a radical group that celebrates the death of a father who was murdered in front of his family, who now they've made t-shirts showing where the bullet exited his neck, who laugh and rejoice at death. You know, the Bible tells us to not do those things, to not take pleasure in the pain of another. Even in the great battles, there came a time when you simply didn't say anything. You allow people to mourn. And I get so sick and tired of hearing people say, well, what about this? What about the Epstein files? I don't care. Open them up. Prosecute people that are guilty, no matter who it is. Because we are a country of laws. But I will ask you this. The Epstein files have been in the possession of the government for 3 administrations now. Do you not think in the last administration, if they found the names in there that they thought are in there, that they would have not trumpeted that out? Then they would not have had to have went and had all of these false charges brought out. I find it sad that I can even talk to a 13 or a 12-year-old kid who understands that concept. Why would they hide that when they had it all along? Why would they hide that? Well, because they didn't have it. And if they do, then bring it out. Nobody's saying to stop that. But I want to open up the ability for some questions. I'd like to bring Val and Greg on, and let's get some chatter going here. I didn't mean to take so long, but you know, there it is.
No, that's what was on your heart, James. And this was classic Continuum Mission Radio on Friday nights, where you would do these brilliant monologues. And I'm going to say right now that 40 minutes plus should be required listening to all high school grads in the United States. As a matter of fact, required listening to all U.S. citizens who care about our country. Thank you for that.